available after this meeting. So I will turn it over to Jen Hughes to get us started.
Hey everybody, great to be with you. I'm so excited and pleased to be joining you. Maybe Evelyn, we'll just give it another minute. Looks like there's a bunch of people still joining from the lobby. And hopefully folks can either mute themselves or we can catch them as they come in, just so we don't get any background noise. I'm hearing a lot of that. Oops. Evelyn, can you actually share your screen? Would that be okay to do for the couple slides?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay, great.
I logged in, but it goes off and on, so we'll see.
All right, well, folks, I'm just going to get started. I'm going to ask if folks can mute themselves, or perhaps Dan, if you can just make sure participants are muted so we mitigate background noise, because I'm still hearing a little bit of that. All right, well, welcome folks. Thank you so much for being here. We are so energized to be joining you all this morning and afternoon, wherever you are dialing in from. My name is Jen Hughes. I am the Director of Design and Creative Placemaking at the National Endowment for the Arts. And I've been with the agency for roughly a decade, and I really genuinely have to admit that the work at the Citizens Institute on Rural Design holds an incredibly special place in my heart, and within the agency's overall commitment to serving rural communities and small towns. I also just wanted to introduce my colleague, Courtney Spearman. Perhaps if she's out there, she can just sort of give you a wave. Here's a photo of her so you know how to connect with her in the future. She has really been leading the effort from our agency side in offering leadership to the Citizens Institute on Rural Design program. And I know she shares my enthusiasm and welcome you all today. So in the next slide, on behalf of all of our partners, welcome. It's really incredible, really energizing to see so many faces and to really get started on this journey with all of you. The NEA invests in the Citizens Institute on Rural Design program with our partners, the Housing Assistance Council and To Be Done Studio, who manage the program on the agency's behalf. And we're incredibly grateful to their ingenuity and adaptability in really expanding and rethinking the CIRD model and their leadership in managing this program. You'll get to meet all of the team shortly. So just a brief introduction to the partners in the program, so you know you are in good hands and we are real allies in wanting to champion your community's success moving forward. So the National Endowment for the Arts, we are primarily a federal grant-making agency. We receive our annual appropriation from Congress, and we are part of the federal family. So we are here to help you navigate arts and culture grant funding from the national, federal level, make sure we're making those connections to our state partners, as well as other federal agencies that hopefully can be available to support your work and implementation moving forward. We have the Housing Assistance Council, who you'll hear from shortly, who we are just so pleased to count as a partner, a national nonprofit that strengthens communities across rural America through assistance with affordable housing and community development. And To Be Done Studio, which harnesses the power of design to create sustainable solutions to the endemic problems that our world faces. We would love to hear from all of you too. Invite you to share your name in the chat, your town and state, where you're dialing in from, so we can kind of get a flavor for who's with us today, and we'll have a chance in breakouts to connect shortly as well. So on the next slide, just a little bit of history. The National Endowment for the Arts began the Citizens Institute on Rural Design program in 1991. It's been a program that has expanded its reach over the last 3 decades, hosting over 85 local workshops, and in the case of this year, bringing together an additional 19 rural communities as a learning cohort. CIRD is a program steeped in the belief that design and culture play a profound role in helping shape the local economic, physical, and social outcomes in communities. It's a program meant to support the visions of rural and small communities, but also is intended to lift up inspiration and approaches for peers to learning from and connect to. We are so excited to embark on a journey of learning with all of you, to learn about the unique histories, culture, stories, people, and design challenges of your communities. It's really great to see so many of you introducing yourselves in the chat. And the beauty of this program, from our perspective, is really to acknowledge the uniqueness of the places where each of you live, the diversity of our nation, and you knowing your community best. While we also hold and acknowledge that there's much we can learn and share together in rural design on topics from historic preservation to the design of public space, from the design of streets to Main Street revitalization. And you are embarking on an 18-month journey to grow your network, build design skills, and develop the vision and execution of your local projects. It's clear your application has evidenced a passion and a commitment to enabling your community to thrive, and we are so excited to support you all as you engage in this work. It's also worth noting, up on the screen here are the communities that we have supported through the CIRD program over the last 3 decades. And you are up there on the map as our Design Learning Cohort. And you're joining sort of this national network of folks who have been engaged through this program. And we're really excited to connect more. We heard from the program participants in the past that they wanted to learn from each other. So came about this wonderful learning cohort. And we've really been developing this programming through the CIRD program, as well as some other technical assistance programs throughout our agency. So what did you all sign up for? Here's just a quick reminder on the next slide, specifically about the CIRD program goals. First, the program is really intended to help build your design capacity, and we'll be getting started on some topical information today. 2, to really learn about how creative placemaking, arts, culture, and design strategies can be drivers of economic development in rural communities. 3, to be part of a national network. This is our national network that we'll be getting to know over the course of the next 18 months together, really to offer up design idea exchanges and peer learning. And lastly, we hope that you will depart this program feeling really ready and quite competitive for a whole range of state, local, federal philanthropic funding opportunities to bring your vision into reality. So we've seen this program have real impact as communities move forward in their design visions and implement projects. Some exciting recent breaking news is that 2 of our alumni community participants went on to receive National Endowment for the Arts funding through our Town Creative Placemaking program to implement the vision that they were working on as part of the cohort. So in the case of Macomb, Mississippi, it was in developing and implementing a cultural plan and the creation and design of a rural cultural district in Sydney, Maine. So with that, it's a real honor to be with all of you. I commend you for being here, for joining us, for participating in this program. And I hope you see the program not just as a resource for your community, but really as partners, as people to support you along the way. So with that, I'm so pleased to pass the mic now to the Housing Assistance Council. Thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen, and Courtney. Of course, my name is David Lipsetz, CEO for the Housing Assistance Council. This has been a fantastic opportunity to partner with NEA, but also to get us to be able to partner on the ground, doing fantastic work with local communities and lifting those efforts up. We turned 50. I turned 50 a little while ago, but HAC as an organization turned 50 last week. And we were born of the Great Society programs and out of the Civil Rights Movement, and have been working hard on housing throughout these years. But as all of you know, when you're in a small town, it's all hands on deck for all kinds of different projects. Yeah, we're known for some rural housing work we've done over the years of helping people get affordable, decent homes to live in. But we also run what we refer to as an information backbone for rural America. You can get data and reports and analysis on communities at large, not just within our housing work. And we can also help you at the local level navigate all kinds of different federal programs. We've got folks in, I think it's 12 states around the country. We do have a DC headquarter, and we've got a long experience working through the complexity of federal programs, knowing that the communities we work with oftentimes need a bit of capacity help to keep things going. So call on us, please, for those things beyond CIRD as you get to know us. And what I think is a phenomenal team of hack folks and TBD studios and NEA. We have expertise here that we joined this process so that you would have an opportunity to tap it. We also have loan fund capacity. So if any of your projects from this, or even if you're just walking around town and you realize that your community is in an effort to try to develop housing or community facilities that's going to serve the local population, call us. I mean, you can call the bank also, and I hope you do, and I hope you get great rates, but we're a nonprofit lender who's going to be there every step of the way, helping you learn how to develop those things and also following you to fruition with all kinds of training and TA. So give us a ring for these projects or others if you see that around your town. And you'll get a glimpse of not only the work in CIRD and a lot of the way that communities have used Hack, but all kinds of other stuff. If you would like to come join us in December for our National Rural Conference, it's here in DC. We get 700-800 people every couple of years and have speakers of all sorts and topical information. So join us. See what you can learn, meet some folks who are doing the same kind of things you are, and see what we can accomplish together. The journey for Hack 2, this design work, is not as far as it might look from the outside, as we've worked on countless different kinds of projects over the years. We've been working within this space and are connected to lots of projects that led with design for community benefit over the years. But this opportunity to formalize it with NEA as a partner and folks actually able to apply, and we have funds to support it, is just thrilling for us. So I hope you sense our excitement as we work with you during this time. I will say that there's a lot in flux right now. Hack does have a special body of work that we do on the Hill, on Capitol Hill, and in the departments where we're working with the White House and elected officials. There is a lot changing, and I can only promise you that we are in the mix trying to get rural development programs like this and others at their highest funding levels, most amount of attention. There's a lot of opportunity right now. So take a look at the materials we're putting out, support as you can at the local level for your rural communities with those electeds. And together, I think we can equitably grow communities that need a helping hand all across the country. So one last kind of point of privilege. For the 3 years that I've been doing this, I think the highlight of my whole time was a trip we all took to Thomas and Davis, West Virginia in 2019. We had no idea what was to come and what would be happening over the next 14 months of our lives as we've sat, like me, trapped in the attic or in other places working from home and avoiding the ravages of the pandemic. We got an opportunity to sit in a town that is developing, it's using design tools to get ahead, and we were able to bring all of the CIRD participants to join, meet there, have some fun, listen to some good music, drink a few beers, talk design work, and really push what I think were a lot of good projects forward. So thank you. It's an honor to be here. I really look forward to forming relationships with the folks who are joining this cohort for the long term. We are here. We want to be your partner in the work you're doing. And please allow us to bring the resources that we've been able to develop over these 50 years in public policy and access to philanthropy and federal programs and development work to benefit a rural community in which you live. So thank you again.
Thank you, David, and thank you for your patience as I'm pulling up my screen, getting everything together. Most of you have spoken with me before. I am Evelyn. I am the project manager for the Citizens Institute on Rural Design at the Housing Assistance Council. And so I am just so excited to be here to talk with you all a little bit more about what CIRD can do for you and what our expectations and goals are over the next 18 months or so. Briefly, I'll mention I'm also a research and policy associate at HAC, so any rural data needs or connections to other of the HAC programs that David was just speaking about, you can also find out more about through me. Also online, I'll give a shout out to my colleague Stephen Sugg. He was the original grant writer for this application. You can go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat if you'd like. Stephen is a rural sociologist with an education background, with a background working at other rural intermediaries in DC and up on Capitol Hill. And although he works part-time, he will make time in his schedule to meet with each and every one of you whenever he can. So if you don't have him as the moderator for your breakout group today, I definitely encourage you to reach out to him, and he'd be happy to find a solution for whatever it is that you bring to him. That is a huge shout out to my colleague. So Jen talked a little bit about the overall program goals for CIRD. Today's goals are going to be understanding more about the CIRD program history and the timeline for the Design Learning Cohort. I've been getting a lot of questions from you all about that, as well as program goals and expectations. We want you to meet other members of the cohort and discuss the approach to this, answer any questions that you have. And then our staff is really looking to get feedback from you all about how this program will operate over the next 18-month period. This is a few slides about that summit from 2019 that David was talking about. So we were able to get everyone together. You can see in the picture what our 2019 learning cohort looked like, the first one we'd ever gathered. We also, during that summit, had a number of site visits as hands-on activities in the upper left and informative presentations. So I'm just showing this to remind you all of where we started, and although we're transitioning online, I'm hoping that all of the elements that we were able to bring into that summit, you'll be able to experience through our online program. And of course, we hope to be able to meet some of you as well. So this is the Design Learning Cohort. This is all of you for this year, and I'm super excited about the range of geographies that we have. We have 2 communities this year from outside of the lower 48 states in Virgin Islands and Alaska for the first time ever, which is great because this is exactly what these kinds of online opportunities are for. We also have communities from California and New Mexico that are explicitly affiliated with tribal nations. And you'll notice, I think there was something going on in the chat. There's a small cohort here of Virginia folks from rural Virginia. We got a number of great applications, and I went to school in Charlottesville, so I'm really excited to get to know all of you as well, and for you to get to know each other. Just as a few highlights, our smallest group in this cohort is, I believe, the town of Bluff, Utah, with less than 300 residents. But our average size for this community is about 7,250 people per town. So all of you very rural, all over the country, and just bring a lot to the table. So I'm excited for you all to meet each other later. I want to talk now about what you can expect from CIRD. We are, over the next 18 months, are going to have 11 trainings between May and December of 2022. And that's going to be once a month or less on the third Wednesday of the month. I apologize for the lack of flexibility on that Wednesday. That has to do with our program staff schedules. And also, if you are trying to do the math right now and you're realizing that 11 trainings is fewer than the number of months, you are correct. We are going to be skipping a few months for optional office hours and giving you all breathing room to grow your project locally before coming back together. So this will be a commitment of 1.5 hours or less. I should say 1.5 hours or more, depending on how much you want to put into the program, because I definitely think that this is something that you'll put into it. What you get out of it is what you put into it. So I'm going to go through a few more of these details, but I'll encourage you now to ask any questions as they come up in the chat, and I'll try to answer them on the relevant slides. I said a little bit about this at the beginning of the program, but we do have closed captions available. Transcriptions will be sent out. Basically, if there's anything else, please let me know. So this is the timeline that you all have been waiting for. I hope that this starts to explain a little bit more about what to expect. So there'll be 11 total quote-unquote mandatory trainings. 8 of those will be what we're calling sessions, which is what we're doing right now, a kind of meeting. And then 3 of them will be webinars, and I'll explain a little bit about those later. But as you can see, in 2021, we're sort of front-loading a lot of the content. So next month, you'll be meeting with Omar to discuss Design Challenge and an introduction to the world of design. And then we'll go into talking about partnerships, a little bit about rural data, and community engagement. So our first break is going to be in August, and then in November for office hours for both of those. And again, I'll explain a little bit about those later. And then this is a preview for 2022, what we have mapped out. Right off the bat, we're going to get into sessions training you to plan for short-term project ideas, what's something that you can do right now, and then long-term project ideas, how to carry a project forward over many, many years. Our webinars in 2022, the topic is to be determined. So they'll be based around your requests for different design topics and what you're interested in. After I'm finished speaking, we'll also have Jennifer McAllister talk a little about fundraising. So even though fundraising is slated for June, there's going to be lots of content loaded in the meantime. And you can see that there's more office hours in the second year, and that's to give you all an opportunity to specialize and break out and get working on your projects between coming together as a group. So each of these sessions, before the session, you'll receive an agenda and breakout discussion questions and learning objectives. There'll also be an optional homework, which may include reading materials, templates, or other resources. And I'll talk more about that later as well. Each of these sessions, we have a general idea mapped out, but we definitely want this to be tailored to each of you. So if you have any suggestions for guest speakers that you'd really like to hear from, maybe there's somebody doing a project in your region that you really admire, that we're open to all of those suggestions. We also want to make sure that we're incorporating peer exchange and peer learning. So let's say that Main Street Skowhegan has recently done a really successful downtown strategic plan. Maybe during the Main Street presentation, you want to do 5 minutes about an example that you've done and what worked well and what didn't, and share that with other communities. For office hours, this is an opportunity. It works just like how office hours would in college. You would sign up for a half-hour slot with topic experts. The participation for this is optional, so if you're feeling like the commitment is getting to be too much, you can always skip these months. It's not mandatory. And you might want to review your homework that we went over through the previous few sessions, or you might want to come prepared with a design challenge ask. We don't want to intimidate you. We don't want to prevent you from coming to office hours. or reaching out for coaching if you just want to chat with our team and just kind of brainstorm different ideas. But an example of office hours that might be more productive, let's say Manchester, Georgia wants to meet with Omar for office hours because they are working on a memorandum of understanding with a developer for their project. So maybe they have a draft of that MOU, or maybe they've never worked on an MOU before and they want to see if Omar has a template that they can send them and work on that during that half an hour. That's an example of something that would be really concrete. Or let's say Carrington Economic Development Group has all 4 of their slots for these sessions filled up, but they have a town council of 7 people, and they really want an opportunity to get their broader team to engage with CIRD. So you might want to use office hours and schedule it at a time when your broader team is able to meet and do that brainstorming or walk through the strategic plan that you've been putting together. Those are just a few examples of office hours. So we'll usually select one person from our team for the month and also one topic expert. So Main Street, historic preservation, adaptive reuse, landscape architecture. If you have any suggestions of experts you'd like to see, let us know. And lastly, I'll note that office hours are designed just for the Design Learning Cohort. So there are 4 groups on this call that are design workshops. And if you have any questions, you can just meet with your project team or your resource team members, because we're going to assume that you can get most of what would be done during your workshop itself. And so we want to save these slots specifically for the Design Learning Cohort that doesn't have that opportunity. Lastly, we are going to have 3 webinars, around 50 minutes of presentation, and webinars, unlike sessions, are going to be shared with the public. So CIRD is a public-facing program, even though we're really focused on working with you guys. This is an opportunity to reach other towns that aren't able to be a part of our program this year. But we will design a breakout session after each of the webinars so that the Design Learning Cohort can ask questions directly of the speakers. And it's also a chance to check in with one another and do some more peer exchange. And once again, the webinar topics are to be determined based on your suggestions. So let's say Surprise Valley in Cedarville, California really wants to talk more about Main Street. They don't think there's been enough Main Street information. You might want to come forward to us and request a Main Street speaker. Other resources. So the first of these is the one-on-one coaching. I will say you can reach out to me or Stephen at any time if you have any questions about the program or how to join these sessions, any logistics or quick brainstorming. But if you'd like to meet with design staff such as Omar or Zane or one of our other resource team members, we're going to request that we do that in 10 hours per community members over the next 2 years. So a good example for one-on-one coaching would be if you know that the topic about community engagement isn't going to come up for a few more months, but you have a really good opportunity to do community engagement in your town right now. That's when you might want to request some one-on-one coaching to go through and brainstorm that strategic plan, and we're happy to help. We also have workshop communities going on, so there might be an opportunity for online site visits. So say Arts Alive in Keene, New Hampshire has a portion of their project that's going to be shared online through Zoom or Teams. If there's other cohort members who are interested in designing an arts corridor, then they might want to join in on that if Keene lets them. Or according to local health guidelines, we might be able to connect you with a workshop that's going on nearby. So Spring Grove, Minnesota is really close to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. You might want to hop on over. This worked really well last year. We had a workshop in Millinocket, Maine, and participants joined from Sydney, Maine. Finally, we have a bunch of online resources that we hope to keep up to date on our website. And later on, Jennifer McAllister is going to talk a little bit about funding opportunities as well. I'm going to skip this just for time. I now have a few expectations just for your team, for those of you that are on the call. There'll be 2 to 4 members per team, including hopefully one primary contact that I can reach out to. And you all already got the directory in the Google spreadsheet. So that's also an opportunity if you meet with somebody that's in your breakout room and you really want to follow up with them, you already have their email. One frequently asked question that I got from a lot of different communities over the last 2 weeks was about assembling your team. A few people have suggested they want to put together a working group. Maybe there's the 4 people that are on these calls, but maybe there's a few more people. If you want to assemble the working group before, after, or around these monthly CIRD sessions, I think that's a great opportunity to dive in further. You're also able to rotate out team members. So as long as one person from your team is on each of those calls, that'll still give you that attendance credit that we keep track of. But maybe one person really wants to join for the fundraising session, but the community development session isn't so relevant for them. If you have any questions about this, feel free to email me. I've already talked with several groups, so I am open for any kind of communication. The other expectation from you is what I'm putting this in quotes, homework. This is not college. This is going to be once a month or less, and it is optional. It depends. It's optional though because we know that you are capable of assessing what's useful for your community and what isn't. That being said, we're not going to assign you anything that hasn't, in our experience, been useful for some communities. So we're doing this strategically, and we're hoping that it's not too much of a lift each month. It's geared towards helping you move the needle on your design challenge. And we'll give that to you in advance of the session. Typically, there'll be an opportunity to go into more details during the session. The other thing that homework is useful for, if you guys want to send us, quote unquote, your completed homework, what that does is it allows our team to get to know you all better so that we're better able to understand what you might want from a session, what you might want from a webinar, what kinds of experts to queue up during office hours. So it's a way of us being able to help you better. And then at the end of this whole program, we hope that these homeworks are sort of become a deliverable from what you guys have been working on over the last year. So I know this was a lot of information. Again, just reach out to me if you have any questions. And we realize that things are going to come up along the way. I'm going to turn it over to Omar really quick, but let me check the chat just to see if there were any questions. Okay. You can also, you will also be able to ask questions of your breakout discussion moderator. So actually, I meant that I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer McAllister. So give me a minute, and then she is going to introduce herself and talk a little bit, give a little preview for fundraising.
Absolutely. Thanks, Evelyn and Stephen, for inviting me to participate today. I loved the first go around with CIRD. I've been with HAC for 2 years now. Last week was my 2-year anniversary. And I've been in housing and community development for almost 16 years. But CIRD was such a great opportunity to do a little bit of different stuff than I'm used to when it comes to housing and community development, especially with this design focus. But I play a role in helping to identify potential funding opportunities for everybody. We'll talk a little bit about the mechanics of that. But obviously my main responsibility is fundraising for HAC. So I'm always on the lookout for opportunities to support the work that we do through our regular program lines, but also through the Citizens Institute on Rural Design. So over the past few years, I've tried to curate as many opportunities to share any funding opportunities, RFPs that come along that I think are applicable to communities participating in CIRD. When they are more they're broader geographically or focus-wise, I will send those through. There is has been a Facebook group, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. And or if they were more specific to a geography, I'll reach out to Evelyn and she'll share those directly with the community, so that way you all have an opportunity to see those, take advantage of those. But the CIRD team has also helped in other ways when it comes to fundraising and accessing funding opportunities. Our team weighed in with rural development and rural education expertise to one of the main partners to help them craft a proposal. We had a support letter coupled with some kind of inside the Beltway navigation that helped another partner secure transportation related funding. And of course, our partners at the National Endowment for the Arts are eager to help you in navigating the public and private sector arts heavy opportunities. So we are all here for you to share expertise and help you in whatever way you need to achieve success. As Evelyn mentioned, you'll hear from me again in June of 2022 when we talk a little bit more about fundraising. I think the last time around I was a little broad in that that presentation, then did deep dive onto kind of CRA fundraising, Community Reinvestment Act related fundraising. But as we get closer to that date, if you have questions, ideas, suggestions of what you'd like me to focus on, please shout out, let me know, because I can help, that will help me as I develop that that presentation and put together what's going to help all of you. Sorry, just looking at my notes. But again, we will continue as long throughout the 2 years to share as many tips and successes with you. One of the other things that I try to do a lot is to share other fundraising resources. So if I come along webinars or free tools, keep an eye out for those, because those will be coming your way as well. One of the ways we also like to partner with all of you is just kind of in the storytelling piece. So my direct report, Mackenzie, who you may not see here, but she's here. She may be reaching out to you as we develop stories for the CIRD blog or other pieces to help highlight and promote the program. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have a CIRD cohort internal Facebook page that will be a private group. Obviously, not everyone is on Facebook, so we will look for other opportunities of ways to share information with you, but that's the primary way that I've been sharing the grant opportunities and other things. So if you have suggestions there, I'm sure Evelyn and the team are open to that. But it's a great way to kind of interact outside of email, kind of liking and sharing things like that. But of course, in short, we're all here to help you and your community succeed in whatever way necessary. But if you have questions for me, my email is jennifer@ruralhome.org. I'm always here to answer questions, provide, feedback on proposals and all that kind of stuff. But that's us.
Awesome. And we'll turn it over to Omar now.
Great. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be on this webinar with you. My name's Omar. There's another photo of me and my email address. I'm the founder and principal of To Be Done Studio, along with my colleague Zane. That's another photo of him. Feel free to write down his email address right now. We are going to be working with you all to support the design efforts of the design cohort and for the workshop communities. We are a design firm focused on social and environmental equity, as Jen mentioned, but another kind of key component of who we are and what we do is kind of making sure that we're going to be as accessible to really many communities across the country, but specifically you all in the design cohort, so the Citizens Institute on Rural Design cohort. So we'll work to be as accessible as possible, to be as flexible as possible, to be as adaptive as possible. So if you ask us, like, for instance, after today, like, what exactly, could you help us with? Well, I might have a few ideas, but as Evelyn mentioned on the call previously, and Jen and David, we're really here to support you all. So kind of back at you. Tell us what you need and how we can be helpful. The office hours, like Evelyn mentioned, are meant to be flexible and adaptable so that we can respond to what you all are going through at different points of your project process. Anyway, so that's just a little bit about how we intend to be supportive of you all through this process over the next year and a half. I want to talk a little bit about design, and as we kind of get into our breakout groups, we, obviously there's a part of design that happens when the pen meets the paper and you really start drawing, and especially in that very beginning early stage, and that's a lovely, wonderful part of the design process. But so much of it is really kind of way before and way after that. And at TBD and in partnership with HAC and the NEA, we think of design as this really holistic process. So we want to talk about that a little bit. We've broken it down today into just, obviously it's kind of definable in many different ways, but we're going to be talking about it in terms of people, place, and partnerships today. So when we think about people, we're always thinking about, who needs to be at the table while we are having design discussions, while we're getting design feedback, while we're, at the early stages of the project, in the midst of it, and afterwards. When we think about who that is, we are often thinking about who is the intended project meant to serve, but also who's impacted directly by its completion and by the process before and after that. And how do we make sure that representation is equitable? What types of knowledge can we honor? There's those that have technical knowledge. That's one of the things that we can provide, as well as I'm sure some of the other partners you all are bringing to your work. But there's also local knowledge, and how do we bring that type of knowledge to the table and into the conversations that we have. So we'll be thinking of design in terms of who are the people that are involved in the process throughout working with you all over this next year and a half. Obviously, we think a lot about place. So where are we working? What are the implications of the place or what we're proposing on that place? What are the kind of climatological, social, anthropological kind of aspects of the site that we need to be thinking about? What was there before us and what will be there after us? And what will the kind of impact of our work be on the local community? And we can think about that in a short-term version, and we can think about that in a long-term version. But hopefully, in the way we often think about our work is very adaptive and responsive to that local place, and that's when stuff really feels right, in my opinion. You can kind of tell when something fits. I know this is stuff you guys already probably all know and agree with, but we're just putting it out there as a way to think through design throughout this next few months with us. And then the other thing we're going to be thinking about and kind of bringing design in and pulling from are partnerships. Who needs to be brought in to make sure that there's a holistic and long-lasting positive impact on the community that we're working in. Who needs to be there to ensure projects development and completion? How do we ensure that everyone's needs are being met, and what kind of partners need to be at the table that can help us with that, as we're not going to be experts in everything? And then how do we do that collectively? How do we kind of, with thinking through, again, people, place, and partnerships, how are we kind of designing a process with all of those partners to kind of move us through, especially in a positive direction? Because as we all know, at times we'll have disagreements or different opinions as to how work should play out, and those sometimes can set us back. But I think if we are able to design holistic and thoughtful engagement processes, we're able to move through those those obstacles in a really kind of smooth and positive way. So that's a little bit about people, place, and partnerships. I'm moving through this quickly just because we'll get into all this if you all are able to join all of our sessions. This is really just kind of a quick preview of some of that. And then I'm just gonna reference the H word for a second. We'll come back to this. Today's breakout will be a bit more of a introduction to this topic, but you will get an email from us once we wrap up today that's going to talk about a little worksheet that's going to help us really think through and write about, articulate, talk about the work that you all want to get done. I know that having read all of the applications from the CIRD program, and especially those of you that are on this call that were selected as learning cohorts, you all have fantastic work that you want to accomplish. The communities that we read applications from are dynamic, interesting places, and we're so excited to be working with you all. We want to make sure we can strengthen how you articulate your design challenges, how you talk about what the future might hold, and so we are going to kind of work through that a little bit in this kind of homework activity that we will flush out a little bit later. But like I said, for now, what we're going to do is jump into breakouts. They'll be facilitated by the CIRD program staff. And I believe at the end of that, we're going to join back up and Evelyn will let us know what to do next.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, I am in the midst of creating these, so if you all will just sit tight. But just to explain, Jen, Courtney, Zane, Omar, Jen number 2, and Stephen will be the different moderators for these. So I'm just going to double check that.
Maybe while Evelyn is getting that finalized, do you all have any questions on the stuff that I just presented? Or feel free to drop those in the chat. I can respond to them. Otherwise, we can hang out for a minute while we get set up in the breakouts.
Also, maybe we can tee up the breakouts. Should we talk about what we're going to do in the room, just so everybody's ready? Evelyn, while you're doing that, I'm happy to sort of reference our moderator cheat sheet. But we're going to do an introduction, name, title, or role in your project community. We'll do a little fun icebreaker question, do a round robin to summarize your design challenge. And hopefully be able to also get to the 1 or 2 things that you would like to learn during your time with the CIRD program. And lastly, if resources specifically come to mind at this moment, we are eager to hear from you all about what would be most useful so that we can really inform this program going forward in a mutual way. So just to get the creative juices flowing before we all are moving out to our breakout rooms, I thought I would share that.
Okay, I'm going to start the breakout rooms now. And you all should just be taken into them. You can sit back and the moderators will introduce themselves and go from there. It might take a moment because there's a lot of you on the call. Moderators, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Hello, everyone. Sorry if that transition ended up being abrupt for any of the groups. I hope you all had a great discussion with your moderators. And you guys have been on a call for about an hour and a half now, so I definitely appreciate your attention. We only have about 5 minutes, so we'll go quickly, but as the breakout room is closing and everyone else is rejoining this meeting, I might turn it over to room number 1, Jennifer, or somebody from your group wants to report out anything that you guys learned about each other or were talking about in terms of resources you were excited to connect to.
Wait, sorry, Evelyn, I wasn't clear on who you were turning that over to. Is it me, Jen, or Jennifer? I wasn't sure.
I meant Jennifer Hughes. Sorry about that. There's 2 Jennifers who are moderators today. So yeah.
Well, we really got into it. I mean, I think that we've already moved sort of beyond those introductory questions and sharing, and folks really offered up a lot of great ideas. I think as we were just booted out of our room, just a fun fact that Virginia shared, Frederiksted, St. Croix being the birthplace of Alexander Hamilton. So we were learning about each other's communities. We really couldn't beat that one. But I think what was really a common theme is we heard a lot about sort of a desire to dive more deeply in community engagement, really getting some tools and resources to how to better understand how citizens can give their input into rural design processes. Heard a lot of great ideas that were already offered up. Dory shared a bit from her community in Midway, Alabama, about ways that they have been already conducting outreach and surveys. We talked a lot about really wanting to dive deeply into how to engage youth in that process. Virginia shared a great project called Photo Voice. We have some great notes that I think we'll want to figure out how to share more broadly with the larger community. And we were really excited to have Mackenzie from Hack in our room to be the chief storyteller. It was great to hear that folks are really looking for ways to elevate the story of their community, really to be seen beyond sort of their place in rural America, but kind of on a broader, more national platform. So an eagerness to figure out how this program might be able to leverage that. So I'll just pause there. There was a lot more, and I'm just so energized after that 30 minutes. So thanks all.
Yeah, thank you. And we are wrapping up here really quickly. I'll turn it over to Courtney in breakout room 2. Just any quick thoughts on how that went?
Yeah, we also had a great group, good connections and a couple of duplicates from communities. So we had some good shared brain power on topics. I think in general, a lot of folks talking about connectivity between places, a lot of interest in health equity and health outcomes and how these projects can influence improved health outcomes in places that have lost hospitals or just have a lack of access to health care. And just in general, looking for ways to revitalize downtowns and communities and really bring people together, several direct and
Awesome.
and some of the things about can help.
Yeah, awesome. Zane, you were in room 3.
Yes, so we had an amazing discussion as well. A lot of talks on kind of land development and older building kind of adaptive reuse. And kind of, I think a big string was really looking at the ideas of partnerships and external organization connections and how to leverage those connections to pull a project forward as a collective and not just kind of one horse kind of leading the whole party.
Yeah. Omar, I think you were in room 4, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Yes, echoing everyone else, had a great discussion. We talked about how what the learning cohort could, what they might want to gain from the program. And one of the parts of that obviously I was enjoying was talking about how what we can do specifically to support them in design. So we talked about how design could be organic and emergent of that place, that it could really come from or should come from the place in the culture that we're working in. We talked about how we can use different types of tools and resources for data collection. And what are some of the challenges around that, given limited internet access and people being dispersed over larger areas and being and some of their populations not necessarily being having a lot of access to computers. So those are just some of the challenges and opportunities.
Awesome. Jennifer McAllister from Hack, you were group 5.
Yes. Or was we 6? I don't know. Yeah, so I think for the most part, we had a great conversation about the different projects and what everybody's doing. And we had a bunch of people from Virginia, which is fantastic. It's where I live. But I think one of the things that really teed up in our conversation was the community engagement piece. How do you be a good neighbor to your surrounding communities, especially if they are, Native communities? How do you engage new populations, which I think some of the communities that, are participating this year may have seen an influx of people that have moved from more urban or suburban areas. So how are we, how can we think about making, that additional outreach to make sure that they feel part of the community? And activities that bring people of all ages together was another key theme in our conversation.
Awesome. And I might have gone out of order here, but Stephen, if you wanted to summarize.
I'll be quite fast, in 30 seconds or less. Floodplains came up. There's a lot of interest in floodplains and climate change and dealing with that, especially from Virginia. Must rain a lot there. Economic drivers and arts and buy-in from the naysayers. That seems to be a common theme. And lots about, parking and traffic and whether those fears are really founded or not, but those are out there. We need to address them. So those are some of the highlights.
Excellent. Yeah, buy-in from the naysayers came up in my group as well. So I have kept you 1 minute over. Thank you guys. This was such an exciting hour and a half. Thanks for sticking around. You'll hear from me and we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.